Hey y'all, this is Pastor Dawn. I wanted to share an addendum. I realized that I didn't put this in the video recording, so I just posted a prophetic word that says 555 in 2025, and I totally forgot to make reference to the fact that the number 5 is the number of grace. Now, I am not a biblical numbers expert, but if you will go to Troy Brewer, TroyBrewer. He has a YouTube channel, and this man is like the guru, the expert on biblical numbers and what they mean, and he has studied them and he's published books on it. So anyway, so the most recent video that I did, 555 in 2025, I was speaking about grace upon grace upon grace, and that's what the number 5 represented. Okay, now on to the next thing. About a week or so ago, I don't remember, I made a promise that I need to amend, and that is that I've had a lot of you request for me to explain, teach, or what have you on the difference between Egypt, which is bondage, the wilderness, and the promised land. And so I made a bold promise that in 2025, I was going to do a year-long teaching. I was going to do like 50 weeks of teaching. When I went back into my prayer closet, the Lord says, Dawn, he goes, I didn't tell you to do that long of teaching. I go, huh? Now, when I say this, please don't take this offensively. He says, Dawn, he says, you will lose their attention. He goes, their attention span is not that long. He goes, you cannot hold their attention for a whole year on one topic. I go, oh. He said, sweetie, the Lord was like, Dawn, he goes, you're going to lose their attention. Like, he goes, I know. Now, here's the funny part. I have enough content that I could teach a whole year on this subject. He said, but you're going to have to condense it because it's too much. I go, oh, okay. All right. So here's the plan. I'm going to do 3 or 4 lessons in February, and it will all be on Egypt. Like, what is the land of Egypt? What is bondage? Now, I'm not talking about people that are unsaved. I'm talking about people that are Christians that are still living in bondage. I'm going to define exactly what that means, give you the characteristics of it, and how do you get out of Egypt, okay? So that will be February. 3 or 4, I'll do like 1 a week, and so I'll either do 3 or 4 teachings. Then in March, I'm going to teach on the wilderness, which I personally have a whole lot of experience with, and that is the topic that I could teach on for a whole year, but God said no because he said it was just too much. It was overkill. I'm like, okay, fine. So in March, and guys, I apologize for my appearance. I just got out of dance rehearsal. So in March, I'm going to do 3 or 4 teachings on the wilderness. And I don't know if we have enough people that want a master class on it where I can go really, really deep. We might do that. I don't know. And then in April, I will teach on the promised land. And so what is the promised land? And so I feel like these are important teachings because I feel like prophetic people make reference to, the land of Egypt, the wilderness, and the promised land. And I feel like a lot of Christians just don't have an understanding of what that means. I'm going to give you just a really brief synopsis, and then I'm going to try to go to bed. Okay. But I am going to do teaching on it. So when a Christian is still living in bondage, when they're still living in the land of Egypt, okay, this is where they are saved. They love God. They might even go to church on a regular basis. 9 times out of 10, they don't have an extremely strong prayer life. Like their prayer life, they just haven't developed it. They could be new Christians. I'm not saying that new Christians are always, still living in Egypt. But they are definitely in bondage in many areas of their life. And so usually this looks like they could still be struggling with addictions. They could, and when I say addictions, it could be alcohol, it could be pornography, it could be all kinds of things, right? They usually are still very much struggling with fear, anxiety, panic attacks, doubt, worry, unbelief, all kinds of stuff, right? And because fear is a bondage. They could still be struggling depression, oppression, and a heavy spirit. Y'all, I lived in bondage to that for so many years of my Christian life, right? So there's all different types of bondages that a Christian can still be living in. And because of those bondages, the circumstances of their life do not look like the blessing of the Lord. Okay, so I'm going to fully define that in the month of February. Then we go to the wilderness. So the wilderness, and I'm gonna be honest, there's a lot of Christians that never even make it to the wilderness, and I'll tell you why. Because they never decide that they are going to come out of their bondages. They have just accepted them, if that makes sense. Even poverty is a bondage. But anyway, in the wilderness is, I'm gonna be honest, it's usually a time of financial lack, yet God is providing for you supernaturally, but usually only just enough of your needs are getting met. But anyway, in the wilderness, you will learn how to switch financial systems. You will learn how to get off of the Babylonian system, and you will learn how to walk in supernatural provision, and God will teach you that process. I'm going to be honest, that process is not a lot of fun, but it's worth it to go through it. In the wilderness, this is where God, if I'd be honest, he kind of strips you of everything. He really reveals the weightiness of all of the bondages that you've been walking in, and he begins to heal you from them. And so the wilderness is like this time when God pulls you aside and he woos you into his presence. And the personal encounters that you have with God in the wilderness are amazing. But it is a process that usually does not feel very great. Usually you're going to get healed from a lot of trauma, past trauma in the wilderness. God is going to grow and stretch your faith. And because he's growing and stretching your faith, you have to walk through the lessons of having your faith stretched. And the other thing that happens in the wilderness is if you don't already know what his calling on your life is, what your specific kingdom purpose is, God reveals a lot of identity in the wilderness. And so it is a wonderful time, but it always also sucks. And there's a lot of Christians who will go through the wilderness or will go into the wilderness, but never make it to the promised land. And we actually see that in the nation of Israel. And so I'm going to teach on that in the month of March. And then there are some of us that get to the promised land. And so the promised land is, I want to debunk a thought. Most Christians think that the promised land is when you are walking in financial overflow and abundance, which that is part of it, and that just everything is coming up roses. Let me tell you something. The promised land is work. Now that you know what your calling is, you know what your assignment is, God has stripped you of all of these things. You're now walking in alignment with God. You're walking in the ways of God. Now he puts you to work. And he stretches your faith even farther than he did in the wilderness. He makes you do all kinds of things you never expected to have to do. So the wilderness is a wonderful place in the fact that you're not usually in this horrible financial lack anymore. But now he stretches your faith because now there are ministry assignments and there are entrepreneurial assignments, and they require so much more money than you've ever had to ask God for. And so now you're still having to learn how to walk by faith financially, even more than you did in the wilderness. And on top of that, now you have assignments. You have kingdom business. If you're an entrepreneur, he puts you to work. If you're a minister, he puts you to work. If you're a missionary, I'm telling you, the promised land is work. It's wonderful, but it's work. And so anyway, I'm going to be teaching on all of that in the months of February, March, and April. And I just wanted to clarify the fact that I'm not going to be doing a year-long teaching on it. And I hope that you guys will enjoy it a lot. All right, you guys, that's all. I love you. Bye.